Susan Sarandon plays Victoria Cord, and she's pretty much a super Karen. That's what she is, chat. It's like, yes, I know we had that Karen movie called Karen.
Bad things happen to people that don't comply.
Where she was pretty much a serial killer and supervillain. But Susan Sarandon is super Karen in this movie. Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video. I want to go ahead and move on to the next part of my show, and that is my review for Blue Beetle. And for those that don't know, the film follows an alien Scarab that chooses college graduate Jaime Reyes to be its symbiotic host, bestowing the teenager with a suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary and unpredictable and dangerous powers. Before jumping into the review itself, I did want to just kind of talk about the overall state of the DCEU.
This is fine.
Its future or lack thereof, and then the Blue Beetle character. The DCEU is in its death throes right now. It's officially, I believe it's ending with Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, chat. We'll see if that movie is even released this year. Who knows? Everything that's going on with the writer strikes and the acting strikes and all the numerous problems that are affecting the film industry right now. But we've just been experiencing these recent DC flops, everything from last year's Black Adam to more recently with Shazam Fury of the Gods, and now with what's going to be one of the biggest flops of all time, and one of the biggest flops of the superhero genre, The Flash. Which I personally found very disappointing. Wasn't looking very good for Blue Beetle at all. The movie's been tracking quite poorly, for quite some time. Looks like it could have one of the worst openings of all time for a superhero film. But I guess that's since rebounds. It looks like it's about to earn double what they were initially predicting it was going to make. They initially thought it was going to make between 12 and 20. Now it's looking like it's going to make maybe around 30 or 40. So it's like, hey, yeah, they have that for it. But yeah, it's just this movie's just in a really kind of weird, sad place right now. It was originally supposed to be a streaming release made for HBO Max. It's kind of crazy that it has a $125 million budget. But that's what it was originally intended to release on. And then when, David Zaslav, Zumbafu as I like to call him, he came in and said no more of these just, direct to streaming releases for HBO Max, or Maxi as it's called now. It's like, let's put this in theaters. But then all the issues that have been happening with DC lately, it's kind of affecting, this film, and not the film's fault. It's paying for the sins of many other DCEU movies before it, which is kind of sad, because the thing is, moving on to the Blue Beetle character, I do not know as much about Blue Beetle as maybe a lot of other comic book fans. I've always been aware of Blue Beetle. I knew about Ted Kord. I know the character. He was an OG. He was one of those original DC characters. I want to say from the 30s, early 30s, or perhaps even late 40s. Excuse me, early 40s. So he's been around for quite some time, different iterations, of course. And this particular movie follows the most recent iteration. Jaime Reyes. I'm more familiar with Reyes. Probably my best introduction to him was in Young Justice Season 2, where so much of that was his story and them dealing with the light and the Scarabs and how they were attempting to take over Earth. I actually quite liked that arc in Young Justice. I think, other than the first season, which I thought was probably still my favorite, the second season, that particular arc was very, very good. And I really liked that he was the focus of the meat. Yeah, they call him the meat. That's what they refer to, all the humans and things, anything, what the alien species refers to, all those people just as meat, as disposable, not even alive or worth saving. Which is actually really, really dark. And so that was my introduction, my true, proper introduction to a long-form Blue Beetle story and just the character. And I really liked how they used the Scarab in that, and how very antagonistic relationship to Reyes and like everyone else that ever interacted with. I thought it was pretty cool. To me, it was almost like a better version of the Eddie Brock Venom relationship.
How dare you!
You know, where they always, you know, I think consistently failed at in those Venom movies like that. And that show was like, oh, wow, you really nailed it. So, you know, when this movie was announced, I was like, hey, that's cool, because I was not one of those guys who's saying, like, don't do Blue Beetle. I was like, no, I think you should do more adaptations of DC heroes that we have not seen. I mean, listen, we've gotten a lot of Batman movies, we got a lot of Superman movies, Chad. You know, it's like, let's explore some of the other characters, the other pantheon of heroes and villains that you have. So I was actually, I was like, I'm looking forward to this movie. But then, to be fair, I started seeing a lot of the trailers, and I was like, yeah, these just look really generic to me. Nothing about these are standing out, from a lot of superhero fare that we've gotten over the last, several years. And so, my expectations were pretty low. However, I want to start out very positive. I think the absolute best thing about Blue Beetle, about the Blue Beetle movie, is Xolo Maridueña. People probably best know him for his role on Cobra Kai as Miguel Diaz, who's, he's very much the kind of the heart and soul of that show. Here as Jaime Reyes, he absolutely shines. You're instantly endeared to him as this recent college graduate, struggling to support himself, struggling to support his family, and just kind of yearning to move up the societal food chain in order to obtain that idyllic, American dream that seems to be out of reach of so many people. His interactions with his family and friends are great, and he is fully capable of handling the comedic and the dramatic and emotional moments in this film with ease. He's one of the best aspects of it, if not the best aspect of it. And speaking of just the Reyes family, I really enjoyed many of the family members in this film. While not every comedic thing they did landed for me, and they certainly do a lot of comedic things, most of the interactions that, Xolo has with them, I think were quite great. And you get a real sense of chemistry and closeness between all of the actors within that family and his friend group. The standouts of the family are Adriana Barraza. The amazing Adriana Barraza, who's been in numerous movies and TV shows. She plays Reyes' grandmother, Nana. And George Lopez. George Lopez is also quite good. He plays Rudy Reyes, who is Jaime's uncle. Barraza gets some of the best, most laugh out loud moments in the film. Now, listen, they've already kind of spoiled like some of her scenes in the trailers, but what they have her do in the movie, I think it's pretty fun. And she gets her own moments to take on quite a few bad guys, and in a surprisingly violent way. George Lopez, who has excelled, I think, as a comedian, for years, whether it be in stand-up or in sitcoms or even films that he's appeared in.
Well.
I think he does such a great job in his role. He's this kind of quirky, very opinionated, but still loving uncle. He has some pretty funny reactions in the film. And, again, he's very much this, as I thought was like indicated in all the trailers, he's very much this kind of crazed conspiracy theorist. So, for example, so him calling Batman a fascist is very much in line with his character and the rest of his beliefs. That was like such a negative pop culture zeitgeist moment when that line was kind of taken out of context and like, oh, see, DC, they're going woke and they're attacking Batman and everything. It's like, first of all, in the context of this world, Batman is a fucking fascist.
Do you bleed?
Batman is terrifying. How many people did he murder in Batman v Superman alone? It's like, forget your rights. He doesn't care. He brands you, sends you to prison, and then people kill you because you have a bat brand for some reason. That's kind of fascist. That's fucked up. In the context of this world, that makes sense. That's the least controversial thing. anyone says in this movie. That's the least controversial thing his character says, because the Batman of this world is a fascist. Which is like, well, yeah. Plus, there's been different interpretations of Batman over the years, where he's definitely more aggressive and he's more murderous, and he has fascist tendencies. Come on. But again, it makes sense with the character, because he's a conspiracy theorist. He's very much a glass half empty kind of guy. He thinks that everything, everyone in the world is out to get him. And in a lot of cases in this movie, it might be. Most certainly might be. And speaking of that whole concept, the film also tackles like economic inequality, like a lot in the movie. It's kind of like, the underlying theme in it. The movie takes place in this, fictional DC city, which I was actually unfamiliar with. I was like, oh, I never heard of this one. Of course, we're all familiar with Metropolis and Gotham and Star City and Central City, etc. This one takes place in Palmyra City. And it felt like a hybrid of Miami and Los Angeles to me. And also just a lot of neon there, too. I don't know if anyone else kind of got that vibe, but it just felt like, hey, let's just take Miami, let's take Los Angeles and smash them together. That's what you get. You get Palmyra City. Welcome. We're the perfect place for corporations. That's funny enough. They actually advertised that in the movie. Like, we have the least amount of corporate restrictions anywhere in the United States. So come on down, experiment on animals and immigrants, and you'll get away with it. Which I thought that was pretty funny. But also the film, it tackles generational poverty and the difficulty of escaping. And again, that's where the endearment comes in regards to, Reyes, in regards to Jolo's character, because he is doing everything right in life. Like he got an education, he got his degree, he wants to come back, he wants to support his family, he wants to help them. But because of certain things that are in place and this, societal apparatus that has been there for decades, if not centuries, he can't. He can't, because of the generational poverty and the other thing that they tackle is racism in this movie. And, people that are in positions of power that do not want to let people in what they perceive in lower positions reaching their same height. And I liked how the movie dealt with that. And again, it makes you care even more about Reyes and his family. The film also, it has a lot of emotional moments, with numerous characters, but especially the family, that'll probably make this film stand out among a lot of like recent DCEU fare. However, the film does have, I would say, some significant issues. While I think it works on a dramatic and on a comedic level, especially in regard to the family and the friends, all of the superhero antics, every single bit of the superhero antics are as generic as they come. You've seen all of this before. I've seen all of this before. You've seen all of this before. Your grandma, your nana, she's seen all of this before. And in most cases, a lot better. It borrows from so many movies. It borrows from Iron Man, Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, Venom, and many other comic book movies over the last 10 years, 20 years, really. It does nothing to set itself apart from those movies. It's obviously influenced by, in terms of the superhero antics. You do have other characters in the film outside of the family, outside of the Reyeses. Susan Sarandon plays Victoria Cord, and she's pretty much a super Karen. That's what she is, chat. It's like, yes, I know we had that Karen movie called Karen.
Bad things happen to people that don't comply.
Where she was pretty much a serial killer and supervillain. But Susan Sarandon is super Karen in this movie. And all she wants to do, her evil plan in this movie, all she wants to do is create evil super suits and robots so she can kick out all the brown people and speak to every single manager at once across the world. That's what she wants to do. That's her ultimate goal. Like, when Susie introduced her and she sees Reyes, she's like, oh, a brown one. It's like, oh my God. It's funny. They describe her as, what does he say in the movie? They describe her as an even more evil Cruella DeVille mixed with a Kardashian. I'm just like,
Don't be hurting. Throw the thing on me. I'll hurt you.
I can see that. She's super Karen in the film chat. Like she's the Karen we should have gotten in the Karen movie. That would have been a lot better because she has like aspirations of world domination and purging the world of all brown people. You know, like that's the thing she wants to do, you know, through corporate enterprise and you know, lack of regulations, and she wants to, you know, continue to push her business into all these poorer neighborhoods where they can't fucking make the payments anymore because it's getting too expensive. Gentrification. She's using gentrification as a weapon in this movie to destroy the Reyes family and all the rest of the brown people they are associated with. There is another character in the film. I apologies if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Raul Max Truello? Raul Max Truello. He plays a character called Conrad Carapax. It's a hell of a name. He's definitely more interesting than Susan Sarandon's character. And he has a backstory and motivation that I liked. It's like, oh, so that's why the way you are. Okay, that makes more sense. But the thing is, once he's inside his own evil big bad Beetleborg suit, he loses a lot of personality. And he's very similar to a lot of Iron Man villains, like, you know, Ironmonger.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Right? Jeff Bridges is Ironmonger, or Whiplash.
I want my board. Well, okay.
And that was disappointing because I was like, I actually like what they were doing with that guy, and he had an interesting backstory, and there was interesting reveals for him. But it's like, as soon as he's inside that suit, it's just you're watching the blue guy beat up the red guy. It's just like, I don't really care. It's, you know, it's one big bad Beetleborg versus another big bad Beetleborg, chat. It's just Beetleborgs borging each other. That's all it is. And I need more than just big bad Beetleborgs borging sometimes. It's not interesting. Again, and you've seen it done better. Much better. Much better. And the other disappointing part of it, which I was actually like, okay, I want to see how you're going to handle this. I'm very interested to see how you're going to handle this aspect of the film. And sadly, I don't think they handle it very well. The Blue Scarab itself isn't that interesting either. You know, it's very much a sanitized version of the Scarab from the comics, and most certainly the cartoons, the one that I'm most familiar with, you know, Young Justice. And it feels like they made it that way to appeal to more audiences. But in my opinion, they just stripped it of a lot of its personality, the thing that kind of set it apart from a lot of other superheroes. Like, you got to deal with this thing that's constantly inside of you. It's constantly telling you to kill people, you know, and it's not like an anti-hero. It's not like, you know, Reyes is an anti-hero. He's like, oh, I do bad things, you know. He's like, he always wants to be a good guy. He always wants to do the right thing. That's what makes him endearing. But he has this thing inside of his head that's constantly telling him to do horrible things. And this one, they don't really do that. They don't really do that at all. Even the voice actor, which, you know, no offense to them, but, you know, I didn't dig it. It really didn't work for me. And I think you took away a very, very, very important aspect of the modern day Blue Beetle. And that was disappointing. The action itself is also pretty generic, and it ranges. I mean, sometimes it ranges from being like, oh, I was competent, like that was handled well. I was like, that was entertaining. That's fun. But now then you go like, whoa, remember that action scene and how cool that was? I want to see the movie again so I can see the action scene. Nothing's like that in this movie. There's not a single scene in this movie where makes you go, I got to go see that again for that action scene. Nothing like that. I would say it ranges from being competent, it's like, okay, that was fun, to something that should be on the CW. I mean, honestly, it's like you are doing scenes that are very similar to like late season Flash. And I'm just like, this is not working. This is just not working at all. And then it makes me realize like this was originally supposed to go to streaming. But then the other part of my mind goes, you had $125 million at your disposal. Where'd the money go? That's confusing to me. And so I don't think they honestly knew how to use like Blue Beetle effectively and showcase the abilities. I mean, they do some fun stuff and they reference anime and things like that, but nothing that I thought was unique. Nothing that I thought was special. It just like, well, that happened. We can move on. Let's do something fun with the family. Can we do something fun with the family again? Can we go back to Nana? What's your opinion on this, Nana?
Bust it down, bust it down.
How are you feeling, Nana? Like, if they did something like that, perfect. But no, there's also a little bit of tonal whiplash in the movie, which is kind of weird. So, you know, we'll have a scene that's like surprisingly dark and kind of messed up the way it's presented to us. Like the whole scene when the Scarab fuses to Reyes' body for the first time. It's kind of horrifying. It's like, that looks painful. It looks like really painful. It looks really, really gross. But I don't know. I feel like that kind of scene, which is, I think maybe initially like shot to be kind of scary, it feels like it has its legs cut out from under it because they decide to include a song that just like does not fit in the scene, and they kind of have the family like freaking out and they're acting a little goofy. I'm just like, not to say that I don't like having the family in a lot of scenes in the movie. I certainly do, but for that one, you know, I thought it would have been better had it been like a little dark. I'm not saying like I don't want any comedy in my superhero movies. They should be grim, dark, and all that edgelord. He's like, no. But the way in which the scene was presenting itself to me, and there's some other ones in the film as well, I felt like, I don't think you need to include this type of music here. I don't think you need a funny gag or a funny line, because I feel like you're kind of undercutting what's happening, the drama here, the horrifying body horror aspects of it. You know, they kind of make it like, that was creepy, that was crazy. It's like, no, that was. I mean, it was horrifying. That thing's embedded in his fucking spinal column forever. So it is bad. So that I thought was weird. And, you know, also, it's funny because Reyes, you know, he's like, I don't want to kill anyone. The family doesn't care at all. They're like, you should kill him. They are adamant about like, don't double tap, take care of all these people. They have a much higher body count than Reyes does in this movie. They do not have his moral like high ground. They certainly are not as morally righteous as he is, you know. And they're like, we got to kill these people, which I actually thought was pretty funny in the movie. He's like, no, don't kill people, you know. But in the end of the day, you know, while I did enjoy this movie more than something like, you know, certainly The Flash or Black Adam. And it definitely has a lot of heart in regards to Jolo and the rest of the supporting cast that was his family and friends. It just doesn't do anything that interesting in terms of the spectacle or the cleverness of the idea of the Blue Beetle, of the Scarab, and what it can do. I was at least hoping that maybe they were like, all right, you're showing some of the stuff, but it's not really working for me here. Maybe you have a surprise, and there's just no surprise in regards to the Scarab. But everything with Jolo, I think, is great. I think even after this movie comes out, I want to see him in more stuff. He's very charismatic. You know, he was charismatic in Cobra Kai. He's charismatic here again. He's got a lot of personality. He's fun to watch on screen. The family, again, is very family. The family is great. You know, they're all good. You get the sense that they all enjoyed working with Jolo, and he enjoyed working with them, and that's why the performances are so good. But yeah, some of the other aspects of the movie just don't work, you know, again. Or not that they don't even work. It's like they work fine, but they're not interesting. It's not as fun as it's trying to be. You know, they're just kind of, it's just kind of there. It's sadly through so much of it, it just feels like a generic superhero blockbuster, and we are in a time where that is not going to cut it anymore. You need to be more than just that. You need to be something like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. You need to be something like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that is managed to balance all sorts of dramatic, emotional, comedic aspects, but as well as showing something that we haven't seen before, doing something that's like really like interesting and vivid on the screen. And this movie doesn't have that. And that's the problem. That's the problem with Blue Beetle. But a lot of aspects I did like, but there were a lot I did not. But that's my opinion on Blue Beetle. What about you guys? What did you think of the DCEU's, the second to last DCEU film, Blue Beetle? I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.